The morning Daniel Carter accidentally climbed into Olivia Bennett's car, he thought his life was falling apart for the final time. Rain hammered the streets of Chicago like the sky itself was angry. His 5-year-old daughter, Lily, had a fever that wouldn't break. He had already missed 2 shifts that month at the warehouse, and one more late arrival could mean losing the only job keeping a roof over their heads. His phone battery was dying, his shoes were soaked through, and the rideshare app showed the same message over and over: driver arriving. When a sleek black luxury sedan pulled up in front of him, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed Lily's pink backpack, rushed through the rain, opened the back door, and slid inside with an exhausted sigh, never realizing this was no Uber. But sitting in the front seat, behind the wheel, in a sharp red dress and eyes that looked like they had never known struggle, was Olivia Bennett, the millionaire CEO of one of the city's fastest-growing tech companies. And in that single moment, both of their lives changed forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can appear in the most unexpected places, take a second to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that remind us love and second chances are real. Daniel noticed the silence first. Most drivers said something: your name, your destination, small talk about traffic. But this woman said nothing. She simply stared at him through the rear-view mirror with an expression somewhere between confusion and disbelief. Daniel looked up from buckling Lily's backpack beside him and froze. This was not his Uber driver. The woman looked elegant, expensive, and entirely out of place in the role of someone picking up strangers for extra cash. Her car smelled like leather and expensive perfume, not pine-scented air freshener. For 2 painfully long seconds, nobody moved. Then Daniel's face turned red with embarrassment. He started apologizing immediately, stumbling over every word, trying to explain the rain, the hospital visit, his daughter's fever, and how he must have mistaken the car. He reached for the door handle, ready to disappear back into the storm, but Olivia surprised him. She asked where he was going. He hesitated. The warehouse on the south side, he admitted. If he was late again, he might lose his job. She looked at the soaked coat, the tired eyes, the backpack with a tiny cartoon rabbit keychain hanging from it, and something inside her shifted. She told him to stay. She would drive him. Daniel tried to refuse. Pride was all he had left someday. But Lily, half asleep in the back seat beside him, whispered that she liked the nice lady's car, and Olivia smiled for the first time. So he stayed. The drive across the city felt strangely intimate. Rain streaked across the windshield while the city blurred into gray and gold lights. Daniel explained he was raising Lily alone after his wife, Sarah, passed away 2 years earlier from a sudden illness. One day, they were planning birthday parties and arguing over paint colors for the kitchen, and the next he was standing in a hospital hallway learning how quickly life could become unrecognizable. Since then, every day had been survival. Morning lunches packed in a rush. Night shifts. Missed school events, still stacked like accusations on the kitchen counter, guilt that never slept. Olivia listened quietly. Most people knew her as the brilliant CEO of Bennett Dynamics, the woman on magazine covers, the polished executive who built an empire before turning 35. But very few knew how lonely success could be. She had money, influence, and a penthouse overlooking the city skyline. She also had dinners eaten alone, a family that cared more about reputation than love, and relationships that always seemed to end the moment people realized her bank account came with her. She had spent years being admired and almost no time being truly known. Yet this exhausted single father in the backseat, still apologizing for dripping rainwater onto her leather seats, felt more real than most people she met in boardrooms. When they reached the warehouse, Daniel thanked her like she had saved his life. Maybe she had. He grabbed Lily's bag, stepped into the rain again, and disappeared into the gray morning. Olivia should have forgotten him. Instead, she spent the entire day thinking about him. At lunch, while executives discussed quarterly growth projections, she found herself remembering the way Daniel spoke about his daughter, not with perfection, but with fierce, messy devotion, the kind that couldn't be faked. That night, she passed the hospital where he had mentioned taking Lily and wondered if the fever had gone down. It bothered her more than it should have. 3 days later, she saw him again. She was leaving a coffee shop near her office when she noticed him across the street, kneeling beside Lily, fixing the broken strap of her little school shoe with a paperclip. Cars rushed past. People hurried by without noticing. But Olivia stood there watching, struck by the tenderness of such a small moment. Daniel looked up, recognized her instantly, and looked equally surprised. This time he smiled first. Their second meeting turned into coffee. Coffee turned into regular accidental meetings that were no longer accidents. Sometimes she would happen at a stop by the cafe near his route. Sometimes he would text to thank her for recommending a pediatrician for Lily. Sometimes she'd send books for Lily after hearing she loved fairy tales. And slowly, cautiously, their worlds began to overlap. Lily adored Olivia almost immediately. She liked that Olivia listened seriously to stories about imaginary dragons and accepted glitter-covered drawings like priceless art. She liked that Olivia wore expensive heels but still sat cross-legged on the floor during tea parties. Most of all, she liked that her father smiled differently around her. For Daniel, that was the dangerous part. He had spent 2 years building walls around grief. Loving someone again felt like betrayal. Hope itself felt risky, and Olivia was from another universe. She attended charity galas while he counted grocery coupons. Her life involved investors and private meetings. His involved school lunches and praying the old heater survived winter. He kept telling himself this could only end badly. People like her did not stay, but Olivia kept showing up. She came to Lily's school recital and clapped the loudest. She brought soup when Daniel got sick. She sat in his tiny apartment kitchen eating takeout noodles like it was the most natural place in the world. And every time she did, Daniel's heart betrayed him a little more. The problem arrived wearing an expensive suit. His name was Marcus Hale, Olivia's business partner, longtime family friend, and the kind of man who believed poor people existed only as motivational speeches for rich ones. Marcus saw Daniel as an embarrassment. At a company gala, where Olivia insisted Daniel attend as her guest, Marcus made sure everyone noticed the warehouse worker standing among millionaires. He asked Daniel if he was enjoying the temporary upgrade in lifestyle. He asked if Lily liked private school, brochures. He asked questions designed not for answers, but humiliation. Daniel endured it quietly because men like Marcus expected anger and fed on it. But Olivia did not stay quiet. In front of investors, board members, and half the city's elite, she shut Marcus down with a coldness that silenced the room. She made it clear Daniel's worth had nothing to do with income, and if anyone had a problem with who she respected, they could leave. The room never forgot it. Neither did Daniel. That night, he drove home in silence, shame and gratitude fighting inside him. He loved her. That was the truth. And because he loved her, he thought he might have to let her go. The next week, he pulled away. Shorter texts, missed calls, excuses. Olivia noticed immediately. She confronted him outside Lily's school one chilly afternoon while autumn leaves spun around the parking lot. Daniel finally admitted what fear had been whispering for months. He told her she deserved someone equal to her world, someone polished, successful, effortless. Not a widowed father still trying to figure out how to braid his daughter's hair without making her cry. He said love wasn't always enough. Olivia stood there with tears in her eyes and asked him who taught him that being loved had to be earned by status. She told him she had spent her whole life surrounded by people who had everything except sincerity. And then a man accidentally climbed into her car carrying a child's backpack and apologizing for existing, and for the first time in years, she felt peace. She said he wasn't beneath her world. He was the first person who made her question whether that world mattered at all. Daniel had no answer for that, only tears he was too tired to hide. Lily, watching from the school steps with the brutal honesty only children possess, shouted that grown-ups were very dramatic and asked if they were done because she wanted ice cream. They both laughed. And in that laughter, something broke open, not perfectly, not magically, but honestly. Love returned like sunrise, slow, undeniable. Months later, Daniel stood in a small backyard decorated with fairy lights and white flowers, holding Lily's hand as she scattered petals with the seriousness of a royal assignment. Friends, neighbors, and a few surprised executives watched as Olivia walked toward him in a simple, elegant dress, looking less like a CEO and more like a woman who had finally found home. There was no grand mansion wedding, no magazine cover moment. Just truth. A man who had lost everything, a woman who had everything except what mattered, and a little girl who had unknowingly brought them both back to life. Before we reach the ending, I have one special request for you. Comment below with the word "a second chance" if you believe love can find us even after heartbreak. I read every comment, and your words help this channel grow and inspire others. During the vows, Daniel looked at Olivia and realized the miracle had never been money, timing, or luck. It was being seen. In a world rushing past broken people, she had stopped. She had looked. She had stayed. And sometimes that is the rarest kind of love. Years later, people would ask how they met. Olivia would smile and say the universe sent her the wrong passenger at exactly the right time. Daniel would say he mistook a millionaire CEO's car for an Uber and somehow ended up with a family. But Lily always corrected them both. She insisted it was because she liked the nice lady's car first, and honestly, she was probably right. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories of love, hope, and unexpected miracles. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Because sometimes the road to love doesn't begin with a perfect plan. Sometimes it begins in the rain, with the wrong car. The wedding should have been the ending. For most people, that was where the story stopped. The beautiful ceremony, the happy tears, the little girl throwing flower petals like confetti from heaven. It looked perfect from the outside, like every broken piece had finally found its place. But real love doesn't begin at the wedding. That's where the real test starts. 3 months after marrying Olivia, Daniel stood alone in the kitchen of their new home, staring at a bill he didn't know how to process. It wasn't because they couldn't afford it. Olivia could have paid it 10 times over without blinking. That was exactly the problem. For years, Daniel had survived by calculating every dollar. Every grocery trip, every school expense, every doctor visit had been a battle plan. Now he lived in a house where the refrigerator cost more than his first car, and every time he reached for something, he felt like he didn't belong there. He still woke up at 5 a.m. out of habit. He still checked discount coupons. He still felt guilty every time Olivia suggested a vacation. Ooh-ho. Sometimes love heals you. Sometimes it simply shines a brighter light on the wounds you were already carrying. And Daniel was beginning to realize he had never really healed. One evening, Lily was doing homework at the dining table while Olivia worked on her laptop nearby. The house was peaceful, warm, safe. The kind of ordinary happiness Daniel had prayed for during his darkest nights. But peace can feel terrifying when you're used to chaos. Olivia casually mentioned that she wanted him to quit the warehouse. Not because she looked down on his work, but because she saw what it was doing to him. The long hours, the back pain, the exhaustion that made him fall asleep sitting upright on the couch. She told him he deserved more than survival. She suggested he return to what he had once loved, teaching. Before life had turned into emergency mode, Daniel had been studying to become a literature teacher. He had loved books, classrooms, and the idea of helping children believe their lives could be bigger than their circumstances. But after Sarah got sick, dreams became luxuries. Now Olivia was offering him the chance to try again, and instead of gratitude, he felt anger. Not at her, at himself, because part of him heard her words as pity. He snapped, harder than he meant to. He told her he didn't need rescuing. The silence afterward was heavy enough to crush the room. Lily looked up from her homework with wide eyes. Olivia closed her laptop slowly, hurt written plainly across her face. She didn't argue. She simply nodded and went upstairs. That silence haunted him all night. Because the truth was ugly, he wasn't angry at Olivia for helping him. He was angry because he still felt like the man who climbed into the wrong car in wet shoes, desperate and embarrassed. And no amount of love had fully convinced him he deserved to stay. The next morning, Lily handed him a drawing before school. It was their family, 3 stick figures holding hands. Above their heads, she had written in uneven letters, "Please stop being sad. Mommy Sarah would want happy. Daniel sat there at the kitchen table and cried like a man finally too tired to pretend he was fine. That night, he found Olivia on the balcony overlooking the city lights. She stood there in silence, wrapped in a sweater, looking smaller somehow. He told her the truth. Not the polished version, the real one. He told her he was afraid. Afraid that one day she would wake up and realize she married a man carrying too much grief and too little confidence. Afraid that love built during survival wouldn't survive peace. Afraid that happiness was temporary and losing it would destroy him more than never having it at all. He admitted he still talked to Sarah sometimes, not because he couldn't move on, but because grief doesn't vanish when love arrives. It just changes shape. He said he loved Olivia with everything he had, and maybe that was what scared him most, because losing her would feel like surviving the same death twice. Olivia listened with tears in her eyes. Then she told him something she had never told anyone. Years before they met, she had been engaged. Not for love, but for expectation. The man had the right family, the right money, the right public image. Everyone approved, everyone celebrated, and yet she had never felt more invisible. The engagement ended quietly, and the headlines called her cold, difficult, too ambitious to be loved. She spent years believing maybe they were right. Then Daniel walked into her life looking like disaster and honesty at the same time. He didn't love her title. He loved the woman who laughed too hard at bad jokes and cried during children's movies and secretly hated networking events. He made her feel chosen, not acquired. She stepped closer and placed his hand over her heart. She told him love was not a rescue mission. It was two people deciding every day to stay, even when it was messy, especially then. That was the night Daniel finally let himself believe he belonged. Not because he earned it, because he was loved. A few weeks later, he applied for a teaching position at a local middle school. The interview terrified him more than his wedding vows. He sat in the principal's office wearing the only suit he owned, hands sweating, convinced they would see right through him. Instead, they saw someone who understood struggle, someone who knew how to reach children who felt invisible. Someone who had lived enough life to teach more than grammar and literature. He got the job. When he told Lily, she screamed so loudly the neighbor's dog started barking. When he told Olivia, she kissed him like victory itself. Life didn't become perfect. There were still hard mornings. Guaitun. Lily still got sick at inconvenient times. Olivia still battled ruthless investors. Daniel still had moments where old insecurity knocked at the door. But now he answered differently. Not with fear, with faith. One winter evening, nearly a year after the wedding, Daniel came home from school carrying a box of student essays and exhaustion in his bones. He found the house dark except for candlelight in the dining room. Lily sat there grinning like she had been trusted with classified information. Olivia stood beside her, nervous in a way he had never seen, not in boardrooms, not during billion-dollar deals, not even on their wedding day. She handed him a small box. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes. For a moment, the world stopped. Daniel looked at her. She nodded, tears already falling. And suddenly he was crying too, the kind of crying that leaves no room for dignity, only gratitude. Lily screamed that she had known for 3 whole days and deserved an award for not telling. They laughed through tears, because after loss, joy can feel almost suspicious. But there it was. Real. Fragile. Beautiful. Another chance. That night, after Lily fell asleep and the city outside softened into quiet, Daniel sat beside Olivia with one hand resting gently over her stomach. He thought about Sarah, about rainy mornings, about warehouses and hospital halls and the terrible loneliness of believing life had already given you your final chapter. He thought about the wrong car, the accidental ride, the woman who had simply said stay, and he realized life rarely arrives the way we expect. Sometimes blessings look like mistakes. Sometimes healing arrives disguised as inconvenience. Sometimes the road back to love begins when everything seems to be falling apart. Before we close this chapter, I have one special request. Comment below with the word e-healing if you believe life can surprise us with happiness after heartbreak. Your comments help spread hope to others who may need it most. Years later, Daniel would stand in a school auditorium watching Lily graduate, holding a toddler on his shoulders while Olivia clapped beside him. He would look at his family and understand something simple and sacred. He had not been saved by money. He had been saved by kindness. by being noticed. By being noticed. By someone choosing compassion on an ordinary rainy morning. And that choice changed generations. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support more stories about love, healing, and second chances. Because sometimes the greatest love story of your life begins with getting into the wrong car.